Today we're making Gong Bao chicken, a dish that's all about contrasts, whether that's colors, flavors, or textures. Starting with the texture, we toast some peanuts. Of course, you can use store-bought toasted peanuts for this. While that's happening, we prepare our sauce of spiciness, the dried chilies. For the home kitchen, if aesthetics not an issue, you can easily just use dried chili powders to make life much easier. As usual, like all my recipes with dried chilies, I like to remove almost all of the seeds. They bring very little flavor, but a lot of spiciness. So, if you want this to be spicier, use more flesh, so you get more flavors out of them. In Gong Bao chicken, everything is bite-sized, so we'll do the same today. Next up, holy trinity of Chinese aromatic vegetables. We have some ginger, I like a lot of ginger, some garlic, and lots of scallion whites, which we'll slice at the bias and add in stages to really layer the flavors. Perfect. Now, our source of crunchiness has been beautifully toasted. Set them aside. Keeping all the essential oil from the peanuts, we deal with our source of numbing sensations, the famous Sichuan peppercorn. And for this recipe, you want to use the Sichuan red peppercorns. And once again, through heat, bring out the wonderful essential oils. And just like most peppercorns, the flavors of the Sichuan peppercorns are predominantly on the surface. And that's why the toasting really makes a difference. Once they are fragrant, and it takes just a minute or two, traditionally you would keep them whole in the dish. But for me, on the theme of layering flavors, I like to crush them and add them in stages so they bring different sensations during cooking. And the longer you cook them, the less numbing they become, but they bring a lot of depth of flavors. And the grinding motion will once again bring out the best of the essential oils on the skin. Perfect. Now we're ready for the chicken. Same skillet, and if you're doing this for the first, second, third time, I would recommend using a non-stick skillet for the home kitchen to take all the stress away. Now, in this skillet, we already have the essential oils from the peanuts and the Sichuan peppercorn. To that, we add a bit of high spirit point neutral oil, in this case, peanut oil. And bite-sized diced chicken thighs, they go straight in. We're deviating from the traditional recipe where you would marinate the chicken in a mixture with a thin coating of cornstarch, because we're factoring in what the home burner is capable of. In the Chinese kitchen, the marinated chicken would go for a walk in the oil, meaning it will be fried off quickly. This, given the high temperature, would brown and crisp up the outside while just cooking the inside. To achieve the same thing in the domestic kitchen, you would have to take a bath in the oil. And that's something I think we can all agree we want to avoid. Instead, we're taking the opposite approach. We are using medium-high heat with just a tiny bit of oil to give it time to cause the Maillard reaction, protein reacting to reducing sugar, making the meat taste meaty, to cause the caramelization, developing depth of flavor, and through time will break down the collagen, the connective tissue, making the chicken even juicier, and slowly create a crust on the outside. And since we've taken the burner, wok, and oil elements out of consideration, this becomes an extremely relaxing dish. Take your time, brown, caramelize the chicken using a device you're comfortable with. If you're a more advanced cook, don't use a non-stick. Let the chicken stick a bit, burn a bit. Create the fond which will later deglass and mop up with all the flavors and cooking liquids. Season with salt, but don't be too generous with the salt. Factoring in, we're going to use soy sauce later. And as I've promised, the layering of flavors, the first round of toasted Sichuan peppercorn goes in now to really build depth and really season the surface of the chicken thoroughly. Now you see the steam coming out. That's the surface moisture of the chicken and some meat juices evaporating. Once the surface moisture is mostly evaporated, we'll start to brown. Now we add the ginger from the Holy Trinity because they take the longest to cook, and they would also help to tame any unwanted gaminess from your chicken. It is very important to use only chicken thighs for this recipe, given the cooking method. If you use breast meat, they'll dry out. Now, once the boiling sound has turned into a sizzling sound, we add the dry chilies. Adding them too early, the moisture would have wilted them unnecessarily. Now, the rendered chicken fat and the peanut oil we added earlier will take on all the fat-soluble flavors from the dry chilies. Now, once the chicken pieces are properly golden brown, as if they had a wok with the oil, we add our garlic and half of our scallion whites. And at this point, if you were using higher heat, it's time to lower the heat a bit, because the sugar content from the garlic and the scallion could burn quite easily. And of course, layering flavors, more toasted Sichuan peppercorns. Look at these colors, it's incredible. Now, we bring in some sweetness. Here we have some mirin, which is Japanese sweet wine, but if you don't have mirin, just add a bit of sugar. Now we take the water-soluble flavors from the dried chilies. And the sweetness from the mirin or the sugar will reinforce the sweetness we just introduced from the scallion, from the garlic. To balance the sweetness, add some light soy sauce. This would bring the salinity and a ton of umami. Once again, more Sichuan peppercorn. Now, traditionally, you would thicken this with a mixture of cornstarch and water. But today, we have something better. We're simply going to make the cornstarch slurry with dark soy sauce. This will give us the color and the consistency you desire. And we add this slowly. Just look at the viscosity. Oh my god. Now, to balance the sweetness and the salinity, at the very last minute, dark Chinese vinegar. And the reason why we do that last is you don't want the acidity to evaporate. You want the freshness to bring everything together. Once there's not much liquid left, the remainder of the scallion and our toasted peanut. Stove off. So beautiful. Now we can plate. Well, we deviated from the traditional approach. Nowhere near as authentic, but definitely equally tasty. This is Pao Chicken for the home kitchen.